Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another Europa League opposition lowdown as we look ahead to Thursday's match at Old Trafford. Rangers heading down south to take on Manchester United. It brings me great joy to say we're joined by Jay Mottershead, who's part of the hugely successful Man United fan channel, the Stretford Paddock. How's it going, Jay?
Yeah, I was just saying to them before we started recording, you probably picked the right times to play us, to be honest with you. I think the manager recently claimed that this could be the worst Manchester United side in history. And the fact we're even having that conversation, or he's even saying that, shows you where we're at. We're struggling. We're losing a lot of games. And yeah, you can see why he said that. It's been, especially at Old Trafford, it's been a difficult season so far.
Yeah, he's having a fair rough time of it at the moment, Amarim. But yeah, lots to discuss with regards to Man United. Another defeat for you boys yesterday. It certainly looked like after the FA Cup match down at the Emirates, Jay, that Man United looked to be on a bit of a resurgence and back to a side that are battling and looking towards the top of the Premier League table, but brought crashing back down to earth. Southampton, of course, was the late show with Ahmad getting a hat-trick. But then at the weekend, a really disappointing defeat to Brighton. Where do we start, really? There's so much to pick out where it's gone wrong for Manchester United. But, I mean, looking at the Premier League table, 10 points from the drop zone, it's uncharted territory, isn't it?
Yeah, look, I know it sounds a bit melodramatic to even mention relegation or anything like that, but 10 points off the drop zone is for Manchester United is ridiculous. I mean, this time last season, I think we were around 7, 8, and 8. We finished 8th, and that was seen as a catastrophe. And now we're sat in the bottom half of the table, talking about how far we are from relegation. I mean, it speaks volumes to just the struggles that we've had this season. And you look at the performances, you mentioned Ahmad's hat-trick against Southampton. I thought the performance against Southampton was terrible up until he sort of grabbed the game by the scruff of the neck. You look at the game against Brighton, obviously recently, it just didn't get going at all, shambolic. And I could go on and on. Bournemouth, Newcastle. We've had a couple of decent performances away from home. You look at what happened at the Emirates, and I know that was in the FA Cup, but you look at it as well in the draw at Anfield, which was a deserved draw against a very good Liverpool team. So there has been some performances that have been more positive, but on the whole, especially Old Trafford, Manchester United, they're as bad as I've seen, genuinely. I can't recall seeing a Manchester United team just this lacking in confidence, making so many errors, and looking so sort of out of ideas up front as well. You look at our goal scoring record this season; it's terrible. We can't, buy a goal. I think our strikers, I think Rasmus Højlund's got 2 in the Premier League. Joshua Zirkzee's got 3. I think Marcus Rashford has a few more, but he's obviously not even an option at the minute. And in the Europa League, and it's obviously about the Europa League, we've not been that much better, to be honest. We've got our act together a little bit in certain games, but it started off quite slowly as well. You look at the draws we had against Porto. I was over in Porto for that draw.
Yeah,
that wasn't great. You look at the home game. I think it was against FC20. I think was it. I mean, it's been pretty lackluster this season for Manchester United. On all fronts, to be honest with you. I think the only sort of good competition, if you say, has been the FA Cup, where obviously we got that big result against Arsenal. But in the Europa League, there's been a couple of good games, but far too many underwhelming ones. And in the Premier League, we've been terrible. So it's difficult to see too many positives, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Ironically, that game against 20, it was a Rangers flop that scored the equaliser for 20, Sam Lammers, which is quite interesting stuff. But at home, what's the issue, Jay? At home, it's a difficult environment to play at the moment, isn't it? I mean, it's a heavy shirt. We know that at Rangers, it can be the best of times playing for the club, but when the pressure's on, it really needs bravery from players, and you're not getting that at the moment, are you?
No, we're not. You're right. You talk about bravery. You talk about players sort of being a little bit overwhelmed, maybe with the shirt or whatever. But there's players that have been there a little while without performing. It's not just new signings. It's not just younger players. It's if it was just a case of only the likes of maybe Garnacho or Kobe Manu or whoever with the issue, then you could say, oh, it's down to youth or experience, but it's not. I think you look at the performances we put in and the reasons we struggled. It's as much to do with the senior players as it is to do with anyone. I don't think there's anyone who's sort of covering themselves in glory at the minute for Manchester United, especially not Old Trafford. Obviously, at the weekend, you had calamitous performance by Andre Onana, who's an experienced goalkeeper, who's been in the Champions League final. He cost a lot of money for a reason. And he's looked sort of like he's just completely lost confidence, or I don't know what you could call it. He just looks a shadow of the player we saw even a couple of months ago, where his performances were vastly improved. Defensively, I think in terms of the back three, they've done okay. I think the Lick's been a good sign. Lenny Yoro struggled against Southampton, but on the whole, you can see why he was brought in. And Harry Maguire's had a bit of a rejuvenation. But we have struggled. We have struggled at wing back. We struggled in midfield. We struggled in attack. And I don't know whether you can just put that all down to confidence and all down to the crowd on your back or whatever. I think there's a little bit more to it than that. I think that whilst I like Ruben Amorim in his only early days, he has to take some responsibility. He's the manager's picking the team, so he's not completely, it's not like he starts saying it was nothing to do with him. I mean, he's the guy that's picking the team. But I do feel he inherited a mess. I do feel like Erik ten Hag, all his positive traits. He did win a couple of trophies. We did make some bad signings, and we did have a few players that just weren't up to it. And we're seeing that now. We're trying to move some players on. Anthony, at the time of recording this, the talk of him I think he's just been announced he's got a real bet, on loan. Been a terrible signing for Manchester United. Mason Mount, 60 million quid that's just not been worth anything at all so far. I get he's had injuries, it's not his fault he's been injured, but he's not done anything of note for Manchester United. It's not been 60 million quid well spent. And then you look at the strikers we brought in, Rasmus Højlund, who is young, but £72 million, you expect to get some goals for that. We got some in our first season. It's 16 in all competitions this season. It's not really been happening for him. So he's throughout the team, really. Whether that's confidence, whether that's the weight of the shirt, whether it's a new manager coming in, whether it's a new system, whatever the reasons are, I don't think any of them excuse the level of performances. You should not be getting played off the pitch at Old Trafford by a team like Southampton, who are arguably are on course to be one of the worst ever, if not the worst ever Premier League team in terms of the amount of points they've got. And yet, for a good hour at Old Trafford, they were the better of the two teams. And that's just completely unacceptable.
Yeah, this system that he's sticking to, Amorim, Jay, can you see it? I mean, I don't think he's got the personnel for it just now. Is it a case of just sort of persevering until the end of the season with it, with the hope of maybe getting to that end of the season, getting some other players into the club that's more used to it? Just need to sort of suck it up, I guess.
Yeah, I think so. I think that if he changes it now, he's probably going to look a little bit more confused, or like he's lost faith in himself than if he'd have changed it a few weeks ago. Because I think the whole idea around sticking with this is eventually, like you said, the right players will come in. The players that are already here that are going to play under Ruben Amorim will get used to this system. He did talk about having some suffering, some short-term suffering for long-term gains. So if he changed it now, it's going to look like he was sort of kidding himself or kidding us when he said that. It has been difficult. The players have struggled, but I'm hopeful that if we get a few signings in that do understand that can play in the system, we get a goal scoring, which has been a massive issue, then Ruben Amorim can have success. My main concern is we ain't going to be able to make too many signings in January. So I think the next 4 or 5 months could be very difficult indeed.
Yeah, and what do you make of his comments? I mean, yesterday you touched on it, saying that it could possibly be the worst ever Man United side. He's not messing about, is he? He's saying it how it is. How did the fans sort of view that?
Well, I think he might have a case in terms of the performances we're seeing. So, I mean, to say the worst Manchester United side history is probably a little bit LCC. We did get relegated once. And,
I know.
I think it's almost impossible to say it. And is this team worse than any team that's ever represented Manchester United? I don't know. But certainly in the Premier League, in terms of the results, statistically, it is. Yeah. How often do you ever hear Manchester United, even in a remote conversation, about being in a relegation battle? Never happens. And I know I don't think we'll get relegated. I think that's being a bit sort of melodramatic. But to even be talking about how far off we are from the relegation places points towards this being an absolutely abject Manchester United team. And it is. It really is. And I think there's enough good players in here for us to turn it around. But we need to start turning it around sooner rather than later if we're going to have anything to hold on to this season at least. I know we talk about long term, bringing in the right players, changing some of the team and buying players that know how to play in the system or whatever and bringing in a goal scorer. But this season, we're only in January. There's still a lot to play for. We're still in 2 competitions in the FA Cup and the Europa League, obviously. And you still want to finish as high up the table as you do. And just from a fan's point of view, you don't want to just see your team losing every week.
Yeah.
You know as well as I do that if you're going to the game every week or you're watching it or whatever, you don't want to just keep watching nonsense thinking, oh, well, eventually it'll come good. You want to see some results in the here and now. So he's got to fix these problems. He really has, because otherwise, as well, what worries me is that Ineos are going to look at it in the summer and they're going to go, is this the right guy? Should we be throwing more money at him? He's got to show that he's the right man for the job, and he's got to show that this season as well as next.
Yeah, spot on. And of course, the Europa League, is that a welcome distraction, Jay? Is that a chance for the Man United fans looking at that going, if we win this competition, get into the Champions League? Because there's obviously no chance at this moment in time of getting in the top 4, top 5 this term in the Premier League.
The issue is, I don't know if it's a welcome distraction. I feel like there's a little bit more pressure in the Europa League now because it's our only route into the Champions League. I think you're right to say that, because we're not going to get into the top 4. That's gone.
Yeah.
So, and you do want Champions League football next season. It's the only way to do it is to win the Europa League. So that adds a little bit more pressure to it, because you're not going into it thinking, oh, it's a cup competition. If we win it, great. If we don't, it doesn't matter. Now there is that added element of, listen, we need to win this if we want Champions League football. These players will know they need to win it if they want to play in the Champions League next season. So that adds its own sort of pressure and expectation, not just from the players, but from the fans as well, maybe even from the manager and from the Ineos themselves. So it does give it a little bit of an edge, and it gives it an edge to a team that is struggling with confidence anyway. And I think a lot of teams, when they're struggling with confidence, if you have more pressure to them, they don't often rise to that. It can often make it worse. So that's a big concern for me. I hope that we can do what we did in 2017, where we kind of put all our eggs in one basket. It was all about the Europa League. Jose Mourinho more or less gave up on the league as an avenue into the Champions League in January. By this time in that season, he sort of said, look, that's not going to happen. And he was focusing on the Europa League, and it worked. We won it, and we got into the Champions League. This season might be a little bit more difficult. I don't think we're as strong this season as we were then, but it's doable. Even a Manchester United team that is erratic, we've beaten Manchester City this season, we've beaten Arsenal this season, we've drawn with Liverpool. So it's not beyond the realms of possibility that Manchester United can win the Europa League. But if we carry on playing the way we have been playing, we ain't going to win anything.
I don't. This game on Thursday night, then, how do you see them shaping up? Because Rangers are a side, especially away from home in Europe, they tend to like to hit on the break. They've got some decent results away already where they sort of soak up pressure, and they've been devastating on the break. Man United, in the main, have struggled to break teams down that sort of sit in a little bit. So how do you see it? How do you see them shaping this team up?
I'm not really sure, to be honest with you. I'd like to think United start on the front foot. To a team that, yes, you second, I think, in the Scottish League, but United should be able to beat Rangers, especially at Old Trafford. So I'd like to see us get at you, attack from the kick-off. We've been conceding goals quite early. We conceded after, I think, 4 minutes against Brighton, which wasn't good enough. But I'd like to see us attack from the start, try and get an early goal, try and get the crowd going as well, give us that positivity. And I think that Manchester United, if we get a goal up, and that forces Rangers onto the front foot, we can still counter. We've still got good attacking players, the likes of Ahmad, of course, who Bruno Fernandes, even a misfiring or a player like Xerxes doesn't often score goals, and still plays part in creating goals, and he can get goals. I think we just need to sort of get off on the right note, because if we start slowly, if you get an early goal, you get an early foothold in the game. I've seen it this season time and time again. The crowd will turn, the crowd will get frustrated, and the players will start feeling that pressure we spoke about, feeling that sort of lack of confidence can kick in, and the sort of the weight of expectation can just make it a difficult evening. So, I think Manchester United have to come out of the blocks, and we have to come out of the blocks, really going for it. There's no excuses now. We can't say, oh, well, this is a good Rangers team, whatever. You should be winning this game. You should be winning it. Really honest, you should be winning it comfortably.
Yeah. Well, they certainly get better quality of player, but it's not always about that at times. In terms of potential changes, Jay, do you think he'll make alterations? You mentioned there the goalkeeper. The fans aren't having on at the moment, are they? So can you see him possibly changing that, or any other personnel?
He might do. He changed it for the FA Cup and the Carabao Cup.
Yeah.
I think in the Europa League, Onana has started. he might stick with him because it'll feel like he's dropping him because of what happened against Brighton, and he might not want to do that. He might not want to make a sort of statement with it. I think if this would have been a domestic cup, then he would have been dropped anyway, or rotated, I should say. So I'm not sure. I think he'll probably sit with Onana. I think centre back wise, we saw, I think it was Maguire, Phillips, and Yoro starting. I think Martinez, if he's available, can come back into that back three. In midfield, Maynard and Guy looked a bit leggy. I don't know if he trusts Casemiro anymore. He doesn't seem to play him at all, barely. I think he did start him against, was it Newcastle, I think, but he wasn't great. And he's barely been getting any minutes. Toby Collier's been getting more minutes than Casemiro. So he might mix it up a little bit. He might decide to go give Eriksen or Casemiro a chance in midfield. I think in attack, Joshua Zirkzee started at the weekend. I thought he did well, even though he got subbed in. Obviously, we lost. I thought he was quite lively. Obviously, won the penalty. So I wouldn't be surprised if Zirkzee keeps his place. Ahmad has been our best attacker this season. I expect him to start. I'd be very, very surprised if he didn't, especially against the team that he used to play for. So I think there will be changes, but not major ones. I don't think United have got the squad to make many changes. We just haven't. You know, you look at the weekend, we were struggling, and we're bringing on Toby Collier, who's a decent player, but he's a 20-year-old player. He's a youngster. I think he's 20. He's barely played any Premier League games. You're bringing on Anthony, who's already left since then. Højlund, who's struggled for goals this season. We haven't got many options. We really haven't. It's sad to say, but this is where we're at.
Yeah, for sure. And I was going to mention as well, in terms of Ahmad, you touched on him there. He's someone, of course, that we know all about his time at Rangers. He was just a young kid at the time, had then a loan spell at Sunderland. He did well. He's sort of the shining light this season for you guys, Jay, isn't he? Someone that is capable of a moment of magic.
He really is. He is. He's done so well this season, and he's had a difficult time of it. Obviously, went on loan to you guys. Didn't quite probably work out the way he wanted it to. I think that's safe to say. Much better at Sunderland, but then we're struggling to get into the Manchester United team. It looked like Eriksen and I didn't quite fancy him, but then this season he's been given his opportunities and he's taken them. He has. My only issue with Amad Diallo isn't, or Ahmad, I should say. I think he's just using the name Ahmad. Isn't Ahmad? He's been great. It's the fact we're over reliant on him now. He's like he's like if it's not him, who is it? He seems to be the only one who's capable of sort of producing that bit of magic that you need, and that's a worry because he shouldn't be coming into this team this season really as a first team player and being our only option in attack. We should have other players stepping up, and that's what I want to see against Rangers. I want to see the likes of Bruno Fernandes, Højlund or Zirkzee, which everyone knows starts, maybe Garnacho if he starts, stepping up, getting at Rangers and getting amongst the goals, because whilst Ahmad's been great, it's a little bit deflating how reliant we've become on a kid who was barely getting in the team until 3 or 4 months ago.
Score prediction, Jay, how do you see it going on Thursday night? Can you see Man United getting a victory? I mean, at the moment they're sitting just above Rangers in that, obviously the expanded league table, 7th. I think they're just now 12 points. Rangers just at a point behind. How do you see it going?
I think it'll probably be closer than I'd like. I think it's going to be a difficult evening. We need to see a performance by United. I know I've been saying this for a little while, but I'm hoping that they'll have been hurt by what happened against Brighton and the comments from the manager, and I'm hoping we'll see a reaction. So I'm gonna go 2-1 United, but I'll be honest with you, I wouldn't be surprised if you guys got a result. I really wouldn't. If United play like we did against Brighton and we did against Southampton for a big chunk of that game, then there's every chance we'll lose. So we have to step up. I think we will. I think we will step up enough to get a win. Yeah, I do.
Yeah, well, certainly a good time, I think, to play you boys. So I'm very much hoping that Rangers, they are a different animal away from home in Europe as they are domestically at matches. In fact, I think more concerned about going to Tannadice to play Dundee United on the Sunday than Thursday, I've got to say, which tells you everything you need to know. I think they sort of mirror image the two clubs at this moment in time in terms of turmoil and that sort of thing. It's quite something, seeing them both struggling in their respective leagues. But it's been great having you on, Jay. Thank you very much for coming on.
No, thanks for having me on, Derek. Good chatting to you. And I won't say good luck to you. wish you luck against Dundee, but obviously I hope you don't have any luck on Thursday.
Magic, top man. Hopefully you enjoyed that, folks. A wee bit of insight into Thursday night's opponents, Manchester United. So until we speak to you later, bye for now.